Hey, Bridget, Craig hasn't filed his report yet, and we promised Reptile Roundup earlier in the season.
He's your friend. You figure it out. Call him on Zoom.
All right, give me a second. Hey, Craig. Hey.
Oh, hey, mammal!
Wait, what are you doing? Where are you?
As we reptiles are usually way ahead of you mammals, I'm on vacation, sipping margaritas on the beach, or, for you Latinx mammals, yo bebo mucho margaritas en la playa!
Are you drunk?
Drunk? No way! These margaritas are ticklish!
Wait, ticklish?
Yeah, you know, sort of like tequila, so they're tequila-ish. And don't worry, after about 20, you can't even taste the difference.
That's what she said. All right, pull it together, man. You forgot to file your report. Can you get it in before the end of the episode?
That's what she said, mammal. I'll get right on it. Ah!
What happened?
What kind of asshole puts salt on a strawberry margarita?
Probably one that wants you to stop ordering strawberry margaritas, Craig. Now get on that report.
Recorded in Round Rock, Texas, in front of a live teleconferenced audience, it's the What's Update with Xander IMDb.
Season 2.5, staying alive, baby.
Oh, hey, welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander IMDb. Let's get started. The origin of the United Kingdom's largest chalk figure, known as the Cerne Abbas Giant, has been the subject of great debate for centuries. The 180-foot-high, club-wielding Cialis endorsement is carved into a hill near the village of Cerne Abbas in Dorset, England. More like club dual-wielding, am I right? At various points in history, it was believed that the figure depicted anything from a Roman homage to Hercules to a rather rude dig at Oliver Cromwell. A study carried out on behalf of the National Trust discovered that the artwork was likely created in the early medieval period, up to 1300 years ago. In that case, I think it is way past time for him to call his physician. After 27 years, 3 children, and more than 40 versions of Windows, Bill and Melinda Gates are divorcing. The Microsoft founder and his wife announced recently that, though the couple is splitting up, their $50 billion philanthropic foundation will continue. Some speculate that at the divorce finalization, they're going to slap Tattoo You on the turntable and play Start Me Up in reverse. Remember, kids, when God opens a door, it still takes 10 minutes to shut down Windows. Ellen DeGeneres has announced that she will be ending her long-running daytime television show. In the show's 18-year run, DeGeneres earned 32 daytime television Emmys and danced with famous people from Madonna to the Obamas. I guess that after nearly 20 years of trying to appear perky every day, Ellen decided that it would be kind of nice to do something else. Elon Musk announced that Tesla will no longer be accepting Bitcoin. Musk said that Tesla had concerns about the energy costs and fossil fuels used to power the computers that run Bitcoin, which some estimates put at more than the entire country of Argentina. Wow. Incidentally, fossil fuel is what Mitch McConnell calls his morning Ovaltine. To combat the dropping number of COVID-19 vaccinations, Ohio is thinking of giving the vaccinated the chance to win $1 million! Ohio's Republican Governor, Mike DeWine, recently proposed that the state give 5 people $1 million each for being vaccinated as part of a weekly lottery program. Of course, not getting vaccinated is a completely different kind of lottery. A federal judge denied the National Rifle Association's attempt to declare bankruptcy in Texas in order to escape a corruption lawsuit filed by the New York State Attorney General. Judge Harlan D. Hale said that if they tried something like this again, the court would replace NRA's chief executive, Wayne LaPierre, and appoint a trustee to run the organization. Judge Hale said, quote, "The NRA is using this bankruptcy case to address a regulatory enforcement problem, not a financial one." Not surprising, seeing how many NRA members use guns to address an erectile dysfunction problem and not a safety one. House Republicans voted to oust Liz Cheney, who had been outspoken about former President Dumpster Fire and the January 6th insurrection that we've been calling Don Ghazi, from her number 3 House leadership position. In a secret ballot vote, Cheney was replaced by Trump loyalist and Republican Elise Stefanik of New York. who campaigned as a moderate but quickly fell into goose step with the MAGA crowd. Stefanik pledged loyalty to Mar-a-Lago Mussolini, vowing to preserve unity in the Republican Party. Because the word Volksgemeinschaft is quite a mouthful, and they've already got their mouths full of Trump's nuts.
Oh.
And on the subject of questionable nuts, Republican representative and obvious Barbie and troll doll hybrid, Marjorie Taylor Greene aggressively confronted Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, shouting at her as she left the House chamber. The incident caused the New York Congresswoman to raise security concerns with congressional leadership. Greene said, quote, "She's a chicken! She doesn't want to debate the Green New Deal!" Apparently, Greene is banking on her status as reigning debate team champion at her local Chuck E. Cheese to save her in a never-gonna-happen matchup against AOC. Additionally, videos surfaced of Greene on her knees shouting through the mail slot of Ocasio-Cortez's congressional office, calling AOC a baby. When trying that trick to get her way another time, she was politely informed, "Ma'am, Golden Corral won't open for at least another hour." With the amount of bullshit spewing from this lady, I keep wondering if anyone has considered fitting her with a thicker mask. The Biden administration recently approved Vineyard Wind, the first large-scale offshore wind farm in the United States. The project is designed to create enough electricity to power 400,000 homes by building 62 turbines off Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Now they just need to build one near Palm Beach, Florida. There's enough wind coming out of Mar-a-Lago to power the eastern seaboard. And speaking of things that create a lot of wind, we join our senior animal expert correspondent, Craig Stapleton Scales, in a segment we call Reptile Roundup. Craig?
Reptile Roundup, it's time to put on a show. Reptile Roundup, there's stuff mammals need to know. What is up, mammals? Or should I say, ¿Qué pasó, mamíferos? There's good news for the world's rarest turtle. It was believed that a male twin-hoe soft-shell turtle might be the last of its kind when its mate died at the Chinese zoo where they lived after artificial insemination. However, a female of the species was recently discovered in a lake in Vietnam. Now those two survivors have a chance to make eggs and save their species. It's like they say, mammals, love will find a lay. Science mammals in Guam are trying to keep snakes from eating endangered Guamanian birds. You say endangered, we say delicious. They designed a cylindrical baffle to keep the brown snakes from climbing up the trees and eating all the Micronesian starlings. They tested the device by putting it around a pole with some mouthies at the top and a brown snake at the bottom. Mouthies. While the science mammals were off doing mammal stuff, I guess, a camera recorded the snake wrapping its whole body around the baffle, like a lasso, and slowly shimmying its way up and eating those mouthies. The science mammals call this type of climbing lasso locomotion, because mammals aren't very creative.
Hey.
Not you, mammal, you're one of the good ones. I don't know about that Rex Kirby guy, though.
Me neither.
Some other science mammals recently said that a type of flying dinosaur had hollow bones like a bird and a neck like a giraffe. See, that's just speciest. As darkids, which were a type of pterosaur that lived during the Cretaceous period, had a wingspan of around 33 feet and are underrepresented in the fossil record because of their hollow bones. This is just reptile cultural appropriation by birds and giraffes. It's pretty common, actually. We call it snake envy or reptile dysfunction. Speaking of species, have you heard about these mammals calling themselves PETA?
It's pronounced PETA, Craig.
What? That's stupid. A pita is like the awesome baby of a sandwich and a taco. Hey, you know what goes great with tacos? Mas margaritas sin sal, por favor!
Craig, focus. What about PETA?
What? Oh, you mean PETA. Alright, so these PETA mammals started an online campaign to say that calling humans by animal names is specious. They think that calling someone a dog, or a pig, or a chicken is an insult. Now, I get that those guys suck compared to reptiles, but thinking that non-human animals care what you call each other is kind of crazy. First of all, unless you're saying it in chickenese, the chicken is just going to ignore you and keep pecking its own poop.
Makes sense, I guess, but what do you suggest?
You just do what I always do. Call them useless, ungrateful mammals. And the dumbest thing is that they think calling a mammal a snake is an insult. Yeah, tough snakes. Who would want to be a snake? It's like they say, mammals, always be yourself. Unless you can be Batman. Or a snake. Have a great summer, mammals. Or should I say, que tengas un excelente
Craig for that educational report. Stick around, we'll be right back.
Yeah! Yeah!
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, true story. One day I was working a floor care shift, which means I was tasked with handing out masks and sanitizer at the front door to anyone who needed it. Time goes on, and this one guy rolls in through the door with a huge grin on his face. I could easily see his sanctimonious sneer as there was no mask covering it. So this jackass gets right up in my face and says, "Nice day outside to catch COVID, huh? Those people out there," pointing to exactly one person putting on their mask outside the store, "they're all crazy." I shit you not, Wazowski, exactly like that. I could already guess where this was headed, so I told him that they're probably just putting on their masks early so they don't forget. His verbal diarrhea then shifted to some grand conspiracy about the CDC and how the masks correlated to Chinese communism and every other crumb of whack job nonsense he could think of. All the while, he inched closer and closer to my masked face with his uncovered mug. I offered him a spare mask so he could go on his way, and in response, he snatched the bag out of my hands and said, "See, right here, what do you think of that?" pointing towards the Made in China label on the bag. I politely informed him that half of everything is made in China, and he just strutted off, maskless, yelling, "You keep believing that! You keep believing that!" I kid you not. Now, I'm not alone in the world of essential workers being confronted by people claiming that mask mandates and vaccination passports are somehow grievous violations of their personal freedom. Some have gone so far as to even compare wearing a mask to the horrors of African-American slavery or the extermination of Jews in the Holocaust. Irony is clearly a foreign concept to these absurd and frequently white people. And you know how they hate things that are foreign.
Yeah.
Now, there is an ever-widening divide between the people that act like complete asses under the guise of personal freedom and people that understand the social good of personal responsibility and accountability. So, here's the thing. It is increasingly clear that a bloviating minority of Americans have completely abandoned the concept of a social contract. For a little background, the social contract is a moral and political philosophy first identified and studied during the Age of Enlightenment in Europe in the 17th and 18th centuries. In its simplest form, the social contract is the process where people relinquish some of their individual freedoms and submit themselves to decisions made by the majority of a community or society. In exchange for giving up some so-called natural rights, the individual benefits from laws and structures that protect social order for everyone. It was believed that, absent a social contract, people's actions would only be governed by the application of personal power or conscience. Might makes right and all that. Rational people submit themselves to the authority of a governing body to prevent the chaos that would occur if everybody decided to do whatever the hell they wanted to do whenever the hell they wanted to do it. Laws keep honest people honest. The lawless recognize no authority above their own desires. The social contract and the stability it creates are a means to an end. The system only works if everyone acknowledges how it benefits all individuals involved, and attains legitimacy only if everyone fulfills their part of the bargain. In other words, don't be a dick. And yet, we increasingly find ourselves in a tsunami of gun-toting, maskless, anti-vax, criminally misinformed, superstitious, hateful for hate's sake raging dick monsters. And we have to hope that those aren't the cops. The social contract in America is in a state of deep disrepair. Not unlike our infrastructure, the post office, the U.S. Congress, our educational institutions, for-profit healthcare system, and our collective levels of public civility and common courtesy. In just under 250 years, our nation, which was founded on the Age of Enlightenment political philosophies, has degenerated from a socially contracted promise with the consent of the governed to create a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty, to a shouting match led by id-driven adult toddlers that are only in it to own the libs. Enlightenment philosopher Thomas Hobbes famously said that in a state of nature, human life would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In the absence of political order and law, everyone would have unlimited natural freedoms, including the right to all things, and thus the freedom to plunder, rape, and murder. There would be an endless war of all against all. So, you may ask, why should I wear a mask in public, even though the CDC says that double-vax people are mostly in the clear during a once-in-a-century global pandemic? Don't be a dick, that's why. Why should I get vaccinated for free against said global pandemic? Because don't be a dick, that's why. Why should I, as a person of means with enough wealth to comfortably care for my and many thousands of families, pay my fair share of taxes? Because don't be a dick, that's why. Why should I not carry a loaded assault weapon into my local Chili's during the lunch rush? Why should I keep my hands and other body parts to myself unless invited to do otherwise? Why should I treat all people, regardless of race, gender, color, creed, national origin, economic circumstances, or sexual identity, with dignity and respect? Because don't be a dick, that's why. And, while I'm on a roll here, why should I hold open doors for people young, old, male, female, or otherwise? Why should I put my shopping basket away when I'm done loading my groceries into my car? Why should I pick up my trash at the end of the movie and put it in an appropriate receptacle? Why should I use my turn signals? Why should I not put a nearly empty milk jug back in the fridge instead of drinking the last sip and putting it in the recycle bin? Why should I refill the toilet paper roll when it's empty? Because don't be a dick. That's why. The social contract doesn't expect you to be a superhero. Nobody's asking you to be a paragon of virtue like Captain America, Sam Wilson, or Steve Rogers. Nobody is asking you to repair all the ills of the world on your own. Nobody's even asking you to be super nice all the time. The social contract only expects you to follow one basic rule when dealing with others. Don't be a dick. Alright, we'll be right back. Welcome back. We are absolutely thrilled about our guests for the last interview of our second season. We'll start with our standard questions. Who you, what's you, and why?
Who am I? I'm Greg Proops. I'm a comedian. You know me from Whose Line Is It Anyway, which I've been on for 30-something years. And I also tour with Ryan Stiles in a group called Whose Line Anyway. And I have a podcast called The Smartest Man in the World that I do with my wife, Jennifer. And I'm also a stand-up comedian. I've played all around the world, from India to Dubai to London and Ireland, whatnot, and even Cleveland.
Truly exotic.
So I'm a comic. And then what was the other one? Who are you? Why are you?
Why?
It's all existential here. This is like Sartre. Why do I exist? What was the third one? I think I said who I was.
Why do you do what you do?
Oh, why? I don't have any other skills. I would be a petty criminal probably if I wasn't a comic. And I've always wanted to do it. I love it. I think you have to love it to want to do it well. I didn't get into it to be famous. I didn't get into it for money, although I wanted money. We all need money to survive. Getting into the arts to be famous is, I think, one of the silliest reasons people do it. I even accept I got into it to meet people from the opposite sex more than I accept the fame premise. At least that would make sense. You know what I mean? Like, because you will get attention from people if you start jumping around and acting like a monkey. So I do it for those reasons. I have a real firm belief in myself and my wife. I don't think you can do any of this without that. It's not that I'm so secure. I'm not. I'm wildly insecure. I'm depressive. It's just that you have to be able to take a lot of lumps in comedy or in show business. People are going to tell you you're ugly, or they're going to tell you a million things. And so your ego has to be pretty big just to get through day by day. That's partially why I do it. And then the other reason is I love being able to say what I think without any fettering. I'm not trammeled in any way by commercial interests to keep my comedy in some sort of box. I don't care about entertaining guys in any way, college guys or jockey dudes or any of that. I have the same outlook at the audience that Kurt Cobain had. He didn't feel any need to play to the grandstand of white guys. And I have so relieved myself of that and shed that from my ethos that I feel wildly free going into the future. White straight dudes and dudes in general get so butthurt over the littlest things, and they really like to rove in a group. And I'm trying to alleviate that as an old white guy. So that's why I do it. I want to talk about abortion and women's rights, people of color, people that don't have a voice, that I can amplify their voice because I have the platform and I'm a white guy and people definitely listen to white guys. So my feelings about, excuse me, my feelings about comics who don't use their platform that way are entirely private, but I think you can go see where I'm going with this. I would never state outright that I think everyone should act like me, because I don't, but I also, if your whole motive is to just incite dudes to take supplements and act ignorant, then that's certainly an aesthetic choice that you're making. That's something that I have no interest in.
I guess with that sort of outlook on life and purpose in your work, I'm guessing worrying about being canceled is not exactly a big concern for you.
Well, it also is not a huge commercial avenue, but the people who say they're being trammeled by political correctness, the people who say they're being fettered and locked in by wokeness and stuff like that, they want to be racist, sexist, transphobic jerks. And that's their excuse for using words like wokeness and political correctness. With me, as Alec Guinness said in the movie Lawrence of Arabia, as written, oh my God, I just blanked on the name of the screenwriter. Anyway, he's a brilliant screenwriter, and Robert Bolt said, the American reporter asks him, he's king.
I lost connection for a moment there. Could you repeat the quote, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Alec Guinness plays King Faisal in the movie Lawrence of Arabia, and Robert Bolt wrote the screenplay. And this is how I feel about political correctness. He says, isn't Lawrence known for his mercy, which is an Englishman fighting for the Arabs? He's giving him full credit, but intimating that Arabs aren't known for their mercy. And Alec Guinness, as the king, says, with Lawrence, it is a passion. With me, it is merely good manner. Did we stop again? Oh, the connection. Are we good? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
Yes.
So
Sorry. Anyway, with me, it's a matter of good manners. Not calling people horrible names and not being prejudiced against them is something everyone should do. And if you don't do it and you feel that the world is pushing you to do it, you're kind of an asshole and you need to deal with that. So that's where I'm coming from on that. Like when people say that, oh God, and everything's so correct now, I can't do my work. Then why don't you just go play to the other rednecks? Because that's where your audience lies.
Them that raise the biggest stink about that are usually the ones that are trying to justify worse actions. And then they ain't that concerned about it. They don't really have anything to justify there.
As Alonzo Bowden, my friend, says, the comedian.
We actually interviewed him previously.
Yeah, well, Alonzo says, have you ever seen a white supremacist say or do anything that indicated they were supreme? And I always look at it that way. Like a lot of people are blathering all the time about how they're having their rights stripped from them or participate. It doesn't really come off like you're supreme. It comes off like you're as weak as can be.
So,
are we still going?
Yes. So, getting back on track. Is there anything you're working on right now or have coming out soon that you'd like to tell our audience about?
Oh, I'm always working on stuff. And yes, I have lots of stuff. My podcast is, hi. my podcast is I have a new one out this week that Jennifer and I did on Monday, where we talk about, I'm sorry about the belief blurs, I really am, about Shock G, who was a rapper from the Bay Area where we're from, who had a giant hit when we lived there called the Humpty Dance with the Digital Underground. And he gave Tupac his start. Tupac was in the group, the Digital Underground. You can see him as a young guy, like kind of bouncing around in the background. And he gave him a shot on a record where he sings the last verse of Same Old Day or whatever. And it's just, so he's really influential, I think. And then we talk about the Olympia Dukakis this week, and the Korean actress who won Best Supporting Actor, Miss Juzit, and a lot of that. So that's for free. And then my Patreon, we put up the Greg Proops Film Club. That used to be for free, but now it's behind a mighty paywall at Patreon. And then I'm doing a live podcast at the Nowhere Comedy Club on May 15th at 5 o'clock. And that's a live show, which I'll be doing from right here in the Fortress of Proopitude. I took a month off from this. I usually do a stand-up show and a two-hander with Ben Glebe every month, but I'm taking a month off this week to kind of pull it together. And then I'm back on the road with Who's Live with Ryan Stiles, Joy, and Jeff Davis. I believe we're supposed to go back out in the very end of September, beginning of October. So we're hoping and praying that everybody gets vaccinated and that we get closer to having full venues by the autumn. So, because that's our goal, is to go back out again. And we have loads of dates booked, so we'll see how it goes. You know, some states are pretty ropey about how they have their protocols. In California, we got lucky because our governor and our mayor here in Los Angeles actually cared whether people lived. So we've got the infection rate down really hard here, and knocking on wood as we speak. No reported people have passed away in the last 3 days here in Los Angeles of COVID. Nice. And that's a huge improvement. Excellent. In January, they told us, don't go to the grocery store. You know, just don't do anything. And we were underwater then. And it's only been 4 months. And I'm not saying it's fixed here. I'm just saying we're lucky. You know, they're going to open, I think, bars in a couple of days, which is a really awful idea, but they're going to do it. And then I hope venues. So I'm hoping by the autumn venues will be like, instead of quarter capacity or half capacity, they'll be closer to being full capacity. And then we can really go back to playing for the crowds that we're used to. Okay, this is a really fun show. We do a lot of improv and singing and jumping around, and we have lots of guests. Dave Foley sits in with us when Ryan don't want to do it, or Drew Carey, or Chip Eston. So wow. Kathy Greenwood.
We all be coming to Austin by any chance?
What happened here? Hello?
Yeah, say something.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Hang on 1 second. Okay. There we go. Sorry. I'm 61, so you have to be really patient with me. It seems that my earbuds have decided to be horrible. And all right, I'm going to go and come back in 1 second. Will you let me back in?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I'm always sideways. There we go. Hello.
There it is.
So you can hear me?
Sorry, the leaf blowers are going now. Yeah. My AirPods cost like, how much these cost? Like a couple $100. So one will go out and then two will go out, and you're like, is this just random shit that you're doing on me? Like, do I have to kick the shit out of you to teach you that you're a machine and you're my servant?
I'm not sure if we should save this for the outtakes or not.
No,
Right? Right?
Leave it in.
Leave it in. We're just experiencing some technical difficulties. Got a ball and chain made of Apple and some earbuds. So for Who's Live, will y'all be coming to Austin by any chance?
I don't think we're coming to Austin. I looked at the schedule. I have it in my other room. We're doing the Midwest and the South and the Northeast. And then we're coming back to California at a certain point. And then next year, we usually do hit Texas. My recollection is it's kind of a Houston, Dallas, Austin situation. If you don't, I can go grab the schedule if you want, just to make sure.
No,
hang on one
second.
second. All right, hang on one second.
we're experiencing more technical difficulties.
Right?
This is gonna be a fun one.
I love this though. This is great. It's the last one. It's the last one of the
Yeah.
season. You know,
Right?
things go sideways. Things get weird. Love it.
This is how the season ends. This is how
It's
the
the
season
final one of the
ends. That was
season.
bang,
It's
but with
disorganized. Yeah, it has to be edited together.
Sure.
Now we go. This year we're supposed to go to Iowa and whatnot. For some reason, we're playing like a couple of places in Iowa, which really makes me like Ames, Iowa. Like we've never played Ames, Iowa before, but okay. And then oh yeah, then we get the Bay Area next year, and then Tennessee. Actually, we go to Knoxville and Memphis. We go to Nashville, but I quite like Knoxville and Memphis. Nashville, I don't know. Any place that lets Kid Rock have a bar in the middle of the street, like, and it's called the Redneck Riviera, that whole street, and it's so gross. It's just
And
like,
this, ladies and gentlemen, is how we piss off Kid Rock.
Oh, who cares?
right? Don't white people
I'll take it
have
as an
enough?
achievement.
Yeah. Don't white people have enough playgrounds? Do we really have to build another one for them? No, we're in Massachusetts, Iowa, Michigan. No, I don't see us in Texas. I see Florida and Arizona. Oh, well. But you know what? We're going to tour all next year. So my guess is if we're still alive, no, we got Atlanta and all through the South, but not. And Florida too. And Ryan's even going to Florida and he hates. Ryan has all these imaginary things that he hates. Like he sees it on TV and then he hates it, you know? I doubt he's ever been to Florida. But we've played Florida a lot. And of course it's fantastic. Just because the governor's a Nazi, you know, it's not, yeah. So no, I don't see us.
Governors. We're stuck with Greg Abbott.
Well, him and Dan Patrick and your attorney general are all thoroughgoing seditionist Nazis. So that's your hard cheese there. It's really bad. And of course, the capital, like Austin and the capital of Wisconsin, Madison, are the liberal bastions of the state, you know, which is hilarious. Although, you know, let's be honest, Dallas and Houston aren't. There's plenty of Democrats all over Texas. There's plenty of.
Yeah. San Antonio as well.
I love San Antonio. We played San Antonio a couple years ago, and the hotel was fantastic. It was right on the river. It was real touristy. It was like, you know, in the style with Spanish thing in the balconies. And the balcony was so small that I had to like put my feet up on the thing. So I sat outside and all the little boats go by and, you know, the little barges, the tourist barges, and the carriages that are all lit up and they wear top hats and whatnot. Yeah. And I was drinking beer and, you know, smoking weed and talking to my wife, and I really enjoyed it. And in the room, one of the air conditioners clearly was like a health hazard and had like Legionnaire's disease pouring out of it. Like it was one of those, as Texas, only Texas and the Southwest can do, a drippy air conditioner that's from fucking 1978, right? And it's just pouring out of one corner. So I had to remember, and now I'm high, so I keep forgetting that each time you go by it, you have to go to the right. Otherwise, you're going to get a big drop of air conditioner water right up you. And then mind the floor, because the floor is completely sopping in one area. So I threw a towel over it to warn me, and I still walked on it 50 times. So I touched it. I had it in my ears, my eyes, because every time I'd walk on it, fuck, don't do that again, right? And then it would go. But, you know, you have a beer, you know. The next morning at that hotel, went down for breakfast. And I usually don't go down. I usually eat in a room, and I find Jeff Davis down there, and both of us were completely hungover. And there's nothing like that breakfast. I had chili Achilles with, or was it huevos rancheros, pot of coffee, basket of warm tortillas, you know. That'll really put you back on your game.
You ever need something like hangover cures or really just someplace to stuff your face, then Texas is the place to do it. Tex-Mex is really good for that.
Oh, so that my memories of San Antonio are super fond. And the night before, we played a really beautiful theater on the river, and some art center. Can't remember the name of it, but this is all you think about on the road is how comfortable the hotel is and how the food is. And it's the food, pre-show food, the dinner in San Antonio, we went to some Tex-Mex takeout and it was through the roof, and everybody was, believe me, when the food's great before the show, we're all ecstatic and in a really good mood, you know. And then it's like, hey, this show's going to be great. If we don't like it, we're like, oh. But Texas comes through, and the South often comes through because you get like shrimp and grits and fried green tomatoes before the show and stuff. And that makes everybody happy, even the vegetarians.
First impression.
Right. So comedy is very important, but eating is really important.
Well said. So people in my age range may not have seen much of your work, but we've all heard your very distinctive voice in things like Nightmare Before Christmas, Star Wars Phantom Menace, and well, more iconically as Bob the Builder. So
Right.
how did those voiceover jobs come about?
Some of all y'all are so young that you were there for Bob the Builder. And I was on True Jackson VP on Nickelodeon about 10 years ago. So I don't know how old you are, but it seems to be like kids in their 20s kind of remember that because it was during the iCarly, not Notorious, what was her name? Victorious? Victorious.
Oh, Victorious.
Yeah, Victoria Justice.
Right.
Victoria Justice.
Right. And whatchamacallit, Big Time Rush shot next door to us. They were on 27 and we were on 25. Those are the Nick. I don't know if you guys watch Nick, but a lot of kids did in those days. So hilariously, I get teenagers who are like, Mr. Madigan, you know, so. But yeah, we like to keep them young. I need another gig where people are kids. I did Star Wars The Resistance a couple years ago. And that was good fun. And it was the same character from the movie, but they just changed the name of it, which is what I love about Star Wars. Instead of Fode, right? Instead of Fode Bidanadu, I was Jock Servak. So Bob the Builder was a really good one. They were looking for an American voice because of same reason I got Phantom Menace. They were looking for American voice in Phantom Menace because they were shooting in overseas. And Bob was a producer in London. And they had an English voice. He's a comedian named Neil Morrissey, who was on a British show called Men Behaving Badly. And Neil's got kind of a Paul McCartney Northern, you know, a bit of a look like that, you know. Oh, Xander, yeah, quite funny, right? Quite funny. And so he was their Bob the Builder. And then they called the market over here in North America, which means Canada. And so they brought me in and I went, I did all these funny voices, you know, this, that. And finally, one of the women came over, they call a PA system or a loudspeaker in England a tannoy. She came over the tannoy or the talkback. She came over the talkback and she said, would you mind doing it again, but in your own voice? And I said, are you insinuating that I have a funny cartoon voice? And she laughed. And so I did it again, just like I'm talking to you, except I put a little more fudge on it and said, oh, well done, Xander. You reduced, reused, and recycled. And they were like, come on out. This is one a happy show business story. I don't like to tell sad ones, but there are too many sad ones. This is a happy one. I came out and she said, would you like to do it? The part. And I said, I'd adore to do it. Thank you. And we exchanged pleasantries and I ran out of the recording studio. We were in Soho in London, a studio I quite fancy because we get Indian food and Chinese food at lunch. And I ran down the stairs and I phoned my voice agent and I went, fucking call them back. I go, they gave me the part in the room, you guys, which never, ever, ever. But no, I can't think of any times it's happened. Once or twice. That's lightning. It's like, you have to wait. So like when they redid Star Wars, The Resistance, it was a new series, came out like 2 years ago on Disney, I think. And they had me come in and read for the pod race announcer. Well, I did the pod race announcer in the movie in the 90s with George Lucas, and George directed us and everything. And I had to read for it. And there was all these different voices. I did English, I did Scottish. There was a Scottish race car driver announcer in the 70s who'd been a Formula One driver, and his name was Jackie Stewart. And he had the most hilarious delivery. He was famous for it when I was a kid. Because he'd go, oh no, they got it on the 13th here, that's absolute mayhem. Like that, right? Like he just did that fever pitch, right? And Scottish. This is a terrible turn of events, you know. And so I did that, and I did a British, and I did a bunch of fucking, and then I didn't hear back. And I kept it cool. And then like a month or two went by, and I said to my wife, I am the fucking pod race announcer. Like it's my voice in the movie, and it's my voice in every single subsequent video game. And we did Lego pod race. We did some other one that I forgot. There's another one. And then there was Resistance, and there was 4 or 5 different video games. And I just did one this year. Did I? Well, I'm not supposed to tell you anything about that one. Anyway, there's something, there's always something. In any case, finally they call me and go, yeah, we want you to do it. And I was like, oh, I got excited because I thought they weren't going to use me. And what they were doing was like, I don't know, being in pre-production for a couple months so they could have the show written when we got there, you know. I thought I kind of got a little before the wagon on that one, but Bob the Builder was awesome. The only thing that was the sour or bittersweet was after about 5 or 6 years, the company got sold, and they just divested everybody that was working for them. You know what I mean? As you do, often companies will just start over. So they went and recast it. So I'm in it for 4 or 5 years, I think, as Bob. I did a couple movies too, like they just already make the movie, and then they just have me dub my voice in because it's animated. So it was great. We recorded in London, and I would come over for like a week, and I'd work for a day and a half, and we'd knock everything off right away. The cat that was the producer, Pete, all we would do is talk music, and then we'd record shows. And then at lunch we get, like I say, curry or Chinese. So I thought the gig was just sweet.
Definitely.
And then this is a terrible story, but it's good fun anyway. And I won't use any real names or any real places. We were recording in the studio, and the cat who was recording it, we did a whole big bundle of shows, like a season's worth of shows. And he did something awful. He tapped the wrong button or whatever, and he either erased it or made it destroyed. So I got a call, and they're like, look, do you want to come back in and do it all over again? And we'll pay you again. Right? And I was, because it's not your fault, like you just, it got eaten. Yeah. So I said, oh, I'd love to, and I was in Germany with Drew Carey at the time. We were in love, and we were doing the World Cup together, and I was there with my wife, and he was there with his girlfriend at the time. And we were in Germany for like a month, and we did this show for Travel Channel. Don't worry, no one saw it. And I think I was in Frankfurt or Stuttgart or something. And I said, at least I'm not in America, but you'll have to fly me over from Germany. Anyway, they flew me over from Germany, and I recorded it again.
Nope.
And they even gave me a bottle of champagne to thank me, which was really wild. So,
all right.
Frozen. The greatest technical achievement. Are we back?
Let's find out.
Let's find
Yeah,
out.
there we go.
Okay, now we got it. So you mentioned earlier that
where did we drop off on that one?
Germany.
Germany.
So they flew me back, and it was really fun. And I saw my wife; she was in London for that week, and I was over for like a day, and I went and recorded. And they gave me a bottle of champagne for my trouble, and I thought we were being awfully generous, But you can't tell that to a producer. So anyway, that was a good one.
Back to the topic.
Yeah, sure. We did Nightmare Before Christmas. It was in 1992, I think, and I was living in San Francisco, and my voice agent gave me a cassette, and it was the song. It was the Halloween song, the first song. So I memorized it, and I did a different monster voice for every line, And so when I went in, it was Danny Elfman and Denise Shinobi, who was one of the producers, and I frozen again now. A way to do a MTV or something, and so I said, "Can I go at the very beginning, like the first person you see that day?" So they put me at noon or something, and I went in and I said, "I'd like to start off by being obsequious and sycophantic, if I may." And they said, "Yes." I said, "I want to say that the music reminds me of Harold Arlen." Because Harold Arlen wrote The Wizard of Oz. And so then I did the song, and I got on the movie, and my friend Debbie Durst, who's one of my best friends in the world, got on the movie, which was fantastic. She's a comedian too, and her husband's named Will Durst. He's a comedian and kind of a mentor of mine. And then another cat from the Bay Area named Glenn, and I'm blanking on his last name. He sang with the Hoodoo Rhythm Devils, and he's the werewolf in the movie because Glenn talked like this. And when he sang, that's how he sang. Ain't love a laugh is even funnier the second half. It's like a fine wine, like another funny valley. Like he had this unbelievable blues voice. Glenn Walters. And he looked like that, and he said, "Oh man, I'm bored. Let's do something. Let's go get drunk." And so we were the Bay Area contingent, and Debbie was the dead baby, and hilariously, she was also the dead baby's mother, and she sings those parts. I think she was a witch too. I can't remember. She's a bunch of parts, and you hear Debbie all over the soundtrack. And then Henry subsequently used her in James and the Giant Peach. I think she's in that one as well.
Yes.
So, and then all the other singers were professional sight reading singers. In other words, these are the people who do advertisements and jingles and the Academy Awards, that kind of thing, where you show up and they give you a bunch of sheet music and you sing it, right? And because you're so good that you can read sheet music and sing perfectly on key and all that. So all of the other singers we worked with, who are enormously talented, Sherwood Ball and Carmen, I forgot Carmen's last name. And one other cat who I worked with, Randall, he was the BMS and someone else. Him and me are the only two of the background kind of people that do the live show. And then we do this live show. And my biggest disappointment last year, aside from Nazis trying to take over the United States and killing 500,000 Americans, was that we couldn't go on the road with Nightmare Before Christmas, because the year before we'd went to Tokyo, London, Dublin, and Glasgow. And the year before that, we were in New York, Hollywood. And the year before that, we did New York. Like, Danny was getting jacked up about doing it. And, when you do Tokyo and all those places in 1 year, it was great. And so that got shit canned. I don't think I'm supposed to talk about what's coming up. But anyway, it's a great live show. And we won't be doing it around the world or anything, I don't think this year, but certainly soon. And Catherine O'Hara sings Sally, and Ken Page sings Oogie Boogie, and Danny sings Jack, and we all do all the monsters, and there's a full orchestra and the video and shit. It's fucking wild. We did it in Tokyo at a concert hall and Hollywood Bowl with giant special effects and stuff, and it's the funnest thing in the world.
Nice. So you've done stand-up, improv, voice work, singing, acting, and everything with TV, film, everywhere. So what kind of performance do you enjoy the most, and why?
Oh, The Nightmare Before Christmas, because I sing the whole part. And when am I going to be paid to sing with a symphony orchestra in a musical? I'm never going to be in an opera or anything like that. So I'm the only non-professional singer of all the singers. Everyone else that sings in the show works in commercials and movies. They're all like jazz singers, and I'm just me. So that one makes me happier than anything I do. I bounce up and down and laugh through the whole thing. And then the next thing I love the most is the podcast, because I've done it with my wife here for the last year, and now it's been awesome. And then before that, of course, we took it all around the world, and a lot of the places I was saying, in Antwerp and Amsterdam and Helsinki and Stockholm and Paris, and we had a pretty good little circuit going. Of Christmas time, we do London with the podcast at the Soho Theater, then go to the Shakespeare and Company in Paris and do Upstairs. Intimate podcast with just friends, and overlooking the Seine and Notre Dame Cathedral, and just when you can get your gigs curated down to that, it was pretty sweet. So I was bummed to see that kind of come to a halt for a year, but hey, I didn't have the worst of it. So.
And like as you said, like you've performed for and worked with some like incredibly impressive people during your career. So do you still occasionally get starstruck, or do you have anybody that makes you all fangirl nervous or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I'm a fan of everyone, and the awesome part about when you're in something with someone, you have that common ground, so you don't have to act as nervous as you would if you were just being introduced to them. I've only, in my long ass life, had 2 or 3 famous people that I met that were absolutely horrible, and I'm not going to say who they were, but generally everyone's really, really nice. And the bigger the stars, and the ones I've casually just met on a set or at a party or whatever, couldn't have been nicer. Literally couldn't have been nicer. And I mean, Paul McCartney and Sean Connery, that kind of, and it just like as nice as could be. I've told the Paul McCartney story way too many times, but in the short version, where Neil Malarkey is in the Comedy Store Players in London, and I'm a frequent flyer. I've been sitting in with them for 30 years, and obviously a bunch of them were in Whose Line, Josie and Richard. And anyways, long story short, he was partners with Mike Myers and a comedy team. So when Mike Myers had was it Wayne's World 2, they had a party afterward. We all went and saw the movie. Then there was a party at the Hard Rock. I'm not kidding. And Paul McCartney was there because it was a charity for his Liverpool music charity that he was given to, the Oratorio or something. In any case, I thought it was hilarious because he's a noted vegetarian, and the Hard Rock is of course only famous for one thing. And so they had veggie burgers and shit on the night too, which I thought was hilarious. And he's a Whose Line fan. This is the early 90s, whenever Wayne's World came out. And Wayne's World 2. Paul Merton, one of the cast, was over there talking to him. And I said to Richard Branch, who's the keyboard player on the original Whose Line, we did it for like 10 years. He's a huge Beatles fan, or as are we all, because we were kids then. And I said to him, now's our chance. He's talking to Paul. Paul's talking to Paul. So we run over and we insinuate ourselves. And Paul McCartney says to me, "Oh, very funny, mate," and I thank you. And he turns to Richard, and Richard was the musician on the show. And he goes, "And you, mate, bloody marvelous, with the guitar and the keyboards all making it up off the top of your head. Absolutely marvelous." Richard goes, "Excuse me for a minute," and walks away. So we finished talking to Paul McCartney, and I find Richard at a table with a beer, sullen and alone. And I said, "What the fuck was that all about?" I go, "Would you care to fucking explain? You're this." He was lavishing you with praise. And you said, "Excuse me, I have to go." And he went, "I couldn't take it." He goes, "How do you tell someone that they've influenced you since you were 6 years old?" And I go, "You don't tell them." I go, he knows. Don't you think he knows? I go, "Don't you, the way we were acting, don't you think he knows that we were in our 30s then?" And it was clear that we had been old enough to have experienced a good deal of the whole Beatle phenomenon. And so that was a good reverse one of being where Richard was more afraid of being showered with praise by Paul McCartney than. No, in my experience, almost every celebrity that I've ever met, it's funny who, like, you feel like you'd be overawed by, like, I think if I met Johnny Cash or, you know, Aretha Franklin or something, I think I'd be a little abashed. And then of course you'd find out that they're nice as can be because they're raised in the church and shit, and they're probably like, hi.
It's always the meanest ones that are actually the
But I've met people that I didn't expect to meet, and because I didn't care, you know what I mean? I wasn't a huge, like, spent all my time worrying about how great they were, which is what you do with people you love. Like we met Duran Duran at a restaurant in San Francisco, and Simon Le Bon was sitting there, right? And my wife goes, hilarious, like, do yourself a favor and go to the bathroom. And I said,
no.
I said, in our long relationship, Jennifer, you've never really said that to me. I'm just wondering where this is coming from. And she goes, just take my advice. And I think you'll find it sage, you know. So I get up from the table and I walk one table over. Behind me is Simon Le Bon, wearing a jaunty fisherman's hat and reading a book. I can't remember which book, but something formidable. It wasn't schlock. It wasn't James Patterson. And I stop at the table and I go, hey, mate. And he goes, hey, oh, it's you. I go, hi. I go, my wife's over. Who am I? And then, oh, we're doing a show tonight. And then the road manager comes over and goes, do you know who you're talking to? And I go, yeah, Kajagoogoo, man. And everybody laughs. And so, oh, come to the show. I go, well, I can't, but Jennifer's, you know, free. So I took her downstairs at 5 o'clock to the hotel where a van was waiting with all of Duran Duran, and put her in the van with her and her friend and waved goodbye. And I went to the comedy club and she went and watched a Duran Duran concert backstage, and Simon fed them and gave them steaks and drinks, and they got drunk with Duran Duran, and their manners were unbelievable. And then I got to go like 2 nights later. They were playing in LA. So I sponged in and said, we're coming again. And I saw John Taylor in the elevator, and I said, I'm just here to lig, man, which means you're sponging off people. It's a British term. You can lig and you can be a ligger and you can do some ligging. It's like dossing. Dossing means you're not doing anything. You're just being a shiftless idiot. So you can doss, or you can doss about, or you can be a dosser in the act of dossing. And Simon made us margaritas, and we hung out before and after the show, and it was just like, and I was like, I never bought a Duran Duran record because when I was in my 20s, you didn't have to, like, you know what I mean? Like we still had the radio and MTV that was mad, and then you just listened to, you know, you couldn't get away from it.
Just turn on the radio, you got one
for like
chance of hearing
15 years. Then when you watch their show, you what?
Like you turn on the radio, you got 1-3 chance of hearing it.
Yeah. So anyway, that was like just pure random niceness. And you know, I still wish them Merry Christmas every year and stuff. They have unbelievable, they couldn't have been more gracious, and there was no reason. I mean, I tried to be funny when I was there, because no one wants a boring comedian. That's a kind of a rule of thumb is when you're invited backstage, you should be the life of the fucking party, because I'm overawed by people, mostly legendary comics that I want to talk to, but then comics tend to be really nice because we're all kind of good with people. So my advice for people always is, if you meet a celebrity or you have a chance to, just do it. Don't be frightened. The 2 or 3 times I didn't do it, I've regretted it the rest of my life, that I didn't talk to people, that I was too scared or too full of myself or too whatever. It's all about you. It's not about them. They know they're famous. You know, I mean, it's not a big surprise when people want to talk to them. So
That's very sage advice.
I mean, Bob Dylan might be sticky, you know.
But figuratively,
But,
or literally.
you know, right?
Yes. So back, like, getting off of the 2 or 3 tangents there. I mean, well, our interviews on the show are usually kind of like 99% tangents. So you've done 3 versions of Whose Line Is It Anyways at this point, in 2 countries over the span of over 30 years. Now, I might be getting you in trouble here, but which was your favorite version and who is your favorite host?
Oh, well, you know, I love all my children equally, except for the boys. Them I'm going to stake to the goal till they die. The British one is why I'm able to swan around like a nit and go to all these different countries. The reason I was able to go to New Zealand and Australia and whatnot, and, you know, all Scandinavian, is because of British Whose Line. We played in India a couple years ago, me and Jeff Davis, and Whose Line's always been carried on Star TV there, right? And so it's astonishing the power of telly, especially in the 90s when the show was really first starting. And then the ABC one allowed me to move to Los Angeles and like have a whole nother thing go and do a lot of stand-up. And then meeting Drew and Rai, we've been in a group together basically for the last 20 something years and done the road. So that's been a pretty important moment in my life. And we were, like I said, up until March of last year, we were on the road. In 2019, we did 100 dates. We did more than 100 dates as a group. So that's a lot of time on the road together. And that was what we were going to do that last year, but that got cut. So then that's why we're picking up. That's why I say, when I say we'll get to Austin, like, I mean it, we'll get to Austin. And
Eagerly awaiting.
Right. And then the CW version has been fantastic because Aisha is so awesome. And last year when things were at their worst, when it really felt like we were going to have that Nazi takeover, I asked Aisha to do a bunch of things for free to help stump for different candidates and do, you know, fundraising for Democrats. And she jumped in and is just, I mean, I've known her for 20 years, but she's such a mensch, and I have a lot of respect for her. And I think that that's been an important moment in the CW one, having a relationship with Aisha where I can ask her for a favor and not feel like she's so committed and present. And that's really nice. And also that the CW one, we're in I think our 8th. I keep getting it wrong. Like, but people, literally fans know more than I do, because I'll say it's our 7th great season and everyone's like, that was last year. So I think we're in our 8th, and we haven't shot since 2019. And we had a whole season last year and a whole season this year of shows that we canned in 2019. So that's how efficient the show is. We got 3 seasons out of 1 shooting schedule. And I'm telling you, that shooting schedule is no longer than 6 or 7 days. I'm never committed more than 1 or 2 days ever. And I've been on hundreds of episodes.
So
they all have their, and this is the one that people hilariously, after 8 years on the CW, people say to me all the time, and all the guys, don't you miss doing Whose Line? And I'm like, well, no. I've done 8 years on the CW. I'm on the road with Ryan for 100 days a year. I often do gigs with Colin and Brad. When I'm in England, which used to be 2 or 3 times a year, I sit in with all the English people from Whose Line. And when I did Edinburgh the last time in 2019, it was with the whole cast of the British Whose Line and Clive Anderson too. And so I'm like, I can't shake them. You know, like, Do I miss them? No, I don't miss them because I'm with them and I'm in their pocket every minute of my life. And the show's been going. It's just because you quit watching it when it went off ABC. I'm not responsible for the consciousness of your television viewing. And clearly you're racist. There's that. So I think it's hilarious. People always ask, do you miss it? And I'm like, well, no, because it's a good deal of my livelihood.
Hard to miss something when you're still doing it. So how would you catch up?
Like hundreds of days a year.
So you mentioned earlier that like all the different locations around the world that you perform for, where do you feel that you have to work the hardest to get a laugh?
Oh, I don't know. The place I want the most respect is Glasgow. I played Glasgow in the 90s when I toured England as a stand-up, and I also played there in the 90s with the Comedy Store Players. And I swore too much, I think, for someone's taste. Is not my recollection of the review of that show, but they're the roughest, toughest, smartest crowd. And I've had, in the last 10, 20 years, one or two sets there that I wished had gone better, where they just kind of shut down on me. But at their best, you get engaged with a Glaswegian crowd and they'll boo and cheer things that you're talking about. They'll let you know if you've got it wrong. They're really dead clever. So you don't want to mess up on them or misplay a heckler put down, because if you do, they'll suddenly form like West Side Story gang and eviscerate you.
But they'll suddenly pop up and be like,
right. And so they, and it's a rough and tumble, right? It's a rough and tumble place. And I made it my point to play there a lot if I could the last few, not as much as I liked it. I've done the festival there 2 or 3 times in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's always one of my favorites. They always put me somewhere different and it's always a different venue. Reconstituted church. It was a community place last time. And I did a stand-up set like 2, 3 years. Well, that in any case, that best. Get my act together before the show. And then I thought, oh, I'll improvise. And someone had given me a book or something. So I took the book on and I tried to riff with it. And they just, you know, it turned into a reading room. And I had to cut. Fortunately, in Glasgow, and this is the part that's always astonishing, you do 2 45-minute sets. You don't do a set. You do a set and then you take 20 minutes or 25 minutes and then you come back and do another set. And that's how they play. And then with the podcast, I'll just go for an hour and a half straight, which I'm sure they'd like me to take a break, but I encourage them during the show anyway. So the last time I played a couple of years ago, great Chinese restaurant. Anyway, oh, and they had fish and chips on the premises, which I really appreciate. I was really nervous about the stand-up. And I remember standing outside in this rusty gate, you know, smoking a joint and just trying to pull my shit together. And like trying to memorize all these really like witty lines I had, you know. And I let it rip on stage. And at the end of the show, and I was nervous. Like I was trying not to act nervous, but I was a little nervous. And I don't get nervous because why? It's been too long. I've been playing too long. I'll come back and touch on that in a second. I got a standing out at the end, and I was really chuffed because, and I don't like to brag on myself unless I'm talking. And I've had 3 or 4 standing outs in the last 5 years that meant the world to me. That one in Glasgow, because I didn't expect it. That was the thing. I know when I do good, and I know when I'm killing. You always do. All comics do.
In the zone.
I thought that I was doing well, but I never got down in the slot where I felt like I didn't have to try hard. And at the end, they jumped up, and I went, oh, they appreciated that I tried hard. The tack that I'd been taking before, where I thought I could casually read from a book, was exactly the wrong tack. What they wanted was the material delivered professionally with all the emphasis I can do. And then you think, oh, right, you know, bring your game. And then the other places were Toronto, like 2 or 3 years ago, 2018 maybe, 2019, the Toronto Festival. They gave me for a couple of nights, and it was full, which I really appreciated. And I got a standing O there. And when you're doing stand up and get a standing O, that's awesome. We often get standing with the group, but I'm in a group with Ryan Stiles, so they're going to stand. They're going to stand. And if they don't, we want to know the reason why. We're pretty energetic. And then I got another one in hilariously. Spokane, Washington, which is Eastern Washington, and Spokane's a little more rednecky, but the crowd that comes to see me isn't rednecky, right? There's a lot of nice people in Spokane, and I played the comedy club there like 4 or 5 years ago, and then I played it again a year ago, or right after 45-1, and I got standing O's both times there, and I don't know what it is with the club. I don't know what it is with the audience. I do my same set that I would do anywhere. It's just that Spokane is like magic for me, and I have no idea why. And I can't wait to go back there because I really didn't expect it either time. I thought I had, okay, that was good. And then, wow, you're like, okay, this is awesome. Like the times I could never tell you that I'm going to get a standing ovation as a stand-up comedian. When we're in the group, I can tell you if we are or not, because I can sense how well it's going,
But then there's just
So there's that.
Something about Spokane.
Oh, and what I was going to say, there was something earlier that I was touching on. Oh, never mind. About you were saying about being nervous. Want to do it right. So that's my nervousness. It's not nervous to be in front of people. It's not nervous to be on stage. It's not nervous to perform or any of that nonsense. I don't have that thing with Barbara Streisand where she gets nervous where she goes on. With me, it's I want, if I'm doing stand-up, there's a specific thing I have to do, right? So you have to have your hat on. And then the podcast, because we're walking backwards, I have to be able to cope with that. So that's what I'm thinking about, not, oh God, what if I fuck up? It's not that, because I'm not going to. And even if I did, it's not my fault. Then I can blame the audience.
This is good. Take all that in. Definitely viable for the longest interview at this point.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Should we stop?
Yeah, you've beaten Slam's record. So.
No, keep
Okay.
going.
No,
We got 2 more good questions.
Okay, but we still got more. So when did you know, when did you first know that you wanted to be a comedy writer, performer, etc.?
Oh, I think as a kid, but I didn't have the confidence. I helped write the play in 5th grade, and we had some great creative writing teachers when I was 10 and 11 that really encouraged us to write. And then there's the horribleness of junior high, and I wasn't very tall, and I had a high pitched voice, and it's so I kind of hid for a couple of years there because I didn't want to get my ass kicked. And then in high school, all bets are off. So I started performing in earnest and doing stand-up then, and plays and DJing and all that shit. And then it was really never a question. It was a question of when I could quit what we used to call Joe jobs, a regular world shit.
Yeah.
So that took me till 25. I was 25 when I just quit. Or 26, maybe 25, 26. I just quit whatever. I was working in retail, I think, at the time. And that was that. And I starved, for years. But then you start to make money and you got confident and blah, blah, blah. So I probably should have done it earlier. I've been doing it professionally since I was a teenager. But of course I went to college and stuff. And then, so that, it was, I knew that I wanted to do it. It was a matter of pulling it together and focusing on one thing. I'd have been in a group in San Francisco for a couple of years. And when that group broke up, I had to go back to doing stand-up again. So, you know what I mean? My energy went from doing stand-up to being in a group to going back to doing stand-up and then being back in a group. So I was able to handle it a little bit better by 25, I guess.
You need to have the confidence and just a little bit of stability in order to completely throw yourself into it.
Yeah, and then I moved to San Francisco. Well, I was already in San Francisco. We went to England in '89 and did Who's Line, and then I started doing Edinburgh Festival in the early '90s. And after that, then I had all the confidence, because after playing overseas and doing tours and stuff, you feel pretty confident, pretty much, because you've eliminated all the things that can happen to you. But I mean, being a stand-up is about failing a million times in a row and then fixing the things that don't work. So failure is the built-in feature of stand-up comedy. You can be assured that things won't work. And that's when you have to do the craft. So the idea that you'd be nervous about getting in front of people is like, the comics who quit are either too rich in another field, they become producers or actors or whatever, or they just don't want to do it anymore. You know what I mean? Because it requires, it's like owning a horse, you know. You got to pay attention to it. You can't just let it sit there. Yeah.
So I've asked this to a couple of other comedians or comedic writers over the season. Are you the funniest person in your family?
Yeah, I would say that. My cousin Donnie is really funny, and we make each other laugh, and we grew up together, and we're teenagers together, and then we're in contact a lot, and I talk about him a lot on my podcast, because we went to a lot of shows and acted stupid together, and he was as close to like a brother, even though I had a brother. Donnie and I were the same age, and I still see him when I'm on the road. I asked him to be a stand-up comic with me when we were like 18 or 19, and he had other pressures. He had family pressures, so he did that. And but he's the only other person in my family that I thought was fucking funny enough to get on stage.
Usually the response to that is like, oh, he thinks so. Then like, oh, I got this uncle over here that always beat me on comedy, where like I'd tell a joke and he'd be like, give you an alley-oop, and like, no. You're the first person on the show to have complete confidence being the funniest person in your family.
Well, my dad had a sense of humor. He was a Jew from New York, and he had a caustic sense of humor. And my other side of my family is all people from Mississippi, so they have a sense of humor, which means drawlingly sarcastic. So I think there were ever funny people in my family, but I'm certainly the funniest.
All right. So wrapping it up, because you have solidly taken the record for this one. If you had, or this is a question we're asking everybody this season, and you are the finale, so let's make this a good one. If you had a magic wand or a genie's lamp or an infinity gauntlet or some other weird magical item that would allow you to change 2 things about the world, what would you change?
Very end of your question.
Hey, repeat the question.
You need me to repeat it?
Just the ending. I get a wish, but I didn't know what I was wishing for.
So and this sort of like magic item or something that would allow you to change 2 things about the world, what would you change?
Oh, about the world. See, that's what I didn't get. I thought it was just going to be like 2 things about the world.
Yeah, 2 things about anything.
I would be real interested to see how successful a matriarchy would be. And I mean a global matriarchy. If I could undo 20,000 years of human experience, or however many, whenever you think it was overthrown, I would love to see how that would have worked out. I think the alternate universe would have been a much funner, different, better, more developed place if we'd allowed the matriarchy to run things instead of guns and all that. That would be my first wish. And then if that's too ethereal, my second wish would be, and this is a gigantic blanket wish, is that I would also wish for that everyone had the same amount of, you know, I'm trying to put this without sounding like the complete, which I am, West Coast liberal. I would like to see actual equality and starting ground for everybody. That means I would see wealth divested from the rich, evil people that have it, because I don't think any goods come of it. I wouldn't put any advances in society, any advances in how we treat each other at the feet of billionaires. I would say if anything, they've fought tooth and nail to make sure that as many people are as unhappy as humanly possible. So I think a redistribution of wealth wouldn't be a terrible thing.
All right. Is there anything?
Then we have to have a GoFundMe for policemen and a GoFundMe for nurses who are sick, which is like the sorriest thing that any modern country has ever put forward, that we actually have to do charity for people who clearly, which is, you know, and then yet, if we talk about raising the taxes, you will see an endless parade of white people on TV screaming that it's unfair to millionaires, an endless parade of it. And it'll never end that we wanted someone to pay $1 so that I didn't have to die or whatever. Could have ended on a bouncier note, but hey.
Well, wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened on these interviews. Is there anything if I had turned off the recording right now, is there anything selfish that you'd wish for yourself?
Oh. No. I wouldn't, you know, one in San Francisco, one in Scotland kind of thing, one in London. I realize having multiple houses is a super fancy thing, that I'd settle for a throwdown crib in each place.
Nice.
All right. Well, I guess that about wraps it up. Greg Proops, everybody. We'll be right back.
Hey, thank you very much for watching. I'd like to thank Greg Proops for being a highly entertaining interview. And also, I'd like to thank you for sticking around for our second season. We will be back in September for season 3, and also we'll be doing a few TikTok shorts over the summer, so you can go and check that out. Be sure to get vaccinated, and once you are, go visit your grandmother. She misses you. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. As always, it is what it is.
You will obey the mighty GB.